Dear friends, understanding psychoanalysis of Sigmund Freud is not very difficult. Probably you must be acquainted with the terminology referred by the Sigmund Freud. First, you have to understand two drives, the sex drive and the drive of aggression. These are the two terms referred by Sigmund Freud with the specific purpose. He said that these two drives our thinking, our emotions, and our behavior also. Then second aspect is understanding structure. The structure explained to us by Sigmund Freud. The structure consists of three: id, ego, and superego. The Freud called id as premature urges and superego as rational or something which is carried with principles and values, and ego is termed as balancing between id and superego. So the role of ego is very important. The ego is instrumental to balance id desire and desire or the rational explained by the superego. The third part is understanding two principles of Sigmund Freud. One is pleasure principle and second is reality principle. What Sigmund Freud says that all the structure is formed, developed and governed by pleasure principle, and later on as the development proceed and you become an adult, the reality principle also impacts your emotion, your thoughts and behavior. But the base is the pleasure principle. Whatever he said, if your behavior is governed by pleasure principle and if you win over pleasure principle at certain point of time, the reality principle will dominate your brain and you will be able to control your emotions, your behavior and your thoughts appropriately. Means the combination of drive and principles governs our emotions, our behavior and our thoughts. Then he has explained how the behavior of a person develops, and it is explained in 5 stages. First stage, he talked about oral, second anal, third phallic, fourth latency and fifth genital stage. These names are closely associated with sex organs of human being or animal, but the meaning is somewhat different. What he says that at any stage, if certain pleasure you demand and certain pleasure is demanded by id, if it is failed, if you will not be able to get that pleasure and if the failure is occurred, so that behavior will be fixed with you, and such fixed behavior can continue in your personality for a long period. Rather, it will be a part of personality. But Sigmund Freud could not explain. Certain behavior is fixed, it is acquired. But what about the behavior which is not fixed? Which is not fixed in the personality, but again, those behavior is also consistent. Those behavior is also part of personality. If we go into detail, this stages explain fixation of the behavior, but stages does not explain the development of the behavior, the whole development of the behavior. Each stage is dominated by certain fixation. Like oral stage is fixed with the mouth, anal stage is fixing with the anus, phallic stage is fixed with peers, latency stage is somewhat a dormant stage when behavior will not be developed, and genital stage will be fixed with well grown genitals. The most important part of Freud's theory is understanding the defense mechanism given by the Sigmund Freud. This defense mechanism explains you the real behavior which you exhibit. But this behavior, rather this defense mechanism, may not be consistent over a situation. In a different situation, you may behave differently, or in a same situation, you may use different defense mechanisms. These defense mechanisms are 10. First is denial. Second is displacement. Third is intellectualization. Fourth is projection. Fifth is rationalization. Sixth is reaction formation. Seventh is regression. Eighth is repression. Ninth is sublimation. And 10th is suppression. The meaning added to these 10 defense mechanisms is somewhat more or less similar to the meaning of the word, but in views of the Sigmund Freud, if we try to understand its meaning, we have to understand in detail about what he means by those terms in theory. Just take the example of a denial. Something is creating anxiety in your mind and you oppose it. So when you oppose the anxiety, you will not take a path of anxious behavior, you will go against the anxiety. That is denial. In the Freud terminology, it is denial. Second is displacement. In the Freud terminology, displacement means now there are two threats to you or your job. One is larger and one is smaller. For example, you have a threat of boss and your colleague. If he discloses certain wrongdoings, you will be out of job. And if your boss discloses your certain wrongdoings, you will also go out of job. But you will be more fearful about your boss and less fearful about your colleague as compared to boss. So what you do that, you will target your peer first instead of your boss. You will try to fight your peer rather than straightway fighting with the boss. That is displacement. Now, next is intellectualization. The use of intellect. Now, how intellect is used, it is very important. Now, something you avoid which is not accepted by your emotions, and this avoidance is the result of your intellectual reasoning. You avoid it, but it is not in reality, it is due to your intellectual reasoning. That is called as intellectualization. Then is the projection. What is projection? It means sometimes what is unacceptable to you, you put it on somebody else. The behavior which is not acceptable to you, you will blame somebody, someone else, and you will understand that you are blaming him, but the blame is your own. That is projection. Then rationalization, that is normally people do. They try to rationalize, they supply a logical reason, not completely a true reason, real reason. They will supply a logic, and on the basis of logic, they will make accepted the facts to the self. That is rationalization. Then reaction formation. Actually, in the reaction formation, you blame somebody on the basis of your own belief. Whatever belief you have, you will react on others on the basis of your own belief. You may deny his belief, and you may force your own belief to be accepted as true. Then regression. In regression is such a defense mechanism which is usually used by people. Actually, we go back to our previous stage. Means if you failed in certain task, you may cry. If you failed in certain task, you may blame somebody. Rather, blaming yourself or showing some symptoms in behavior is an aspect of regression. Then repression. Repression is a specific phenomena in which you pulled certain unacceptable thing into your unconscious. You pulled it, but it remains in unconscious, and then at some point of time it will give you trouble. The opposite of repression is suppression. In suppression, the same phenomena, but you try to push certain thing which is causing you anxiety or which is not acceptable to you. What you do, you suppressed it, you push it into unconscious. So when you pull, it is repression. When you push, it is suppression. And the last one is sublimation. Like you have a certain level of energy, and that energy will be sublimated or transformed, shifted to any other act. For example, Freud is normally talking about sexual energy in the fourth stage, in a latency stage. In a latency stage, the sexual energy remains dormant and it gets sublimated to achieve intellect, to achieve something on the basis of intellect, to go and play with the peers, to have acquaintance with the same gender. Sublimating sexual energy to doing intellectual task or task of sport, that is sublimation. So friends, understands Freud very well. The Freud psychoanalysis is very, very useful in handling clinical patient, particularly the 10 defense mechanism. If you use and if you understand and use these 10 defense mechanism for treatment, it will be a best use of the knowledge. But understand these 10 defense mechanism in each person's behavior, and on what behavior the person is uniquely using these defense mechanism. If the use is wrong, then your job is to correct it. Thank you, friends. If you like this video, you subscribe my channel. Thank you very much.